Mortgage madness, can't you see? Living free and cheaply. Interest climbing like a tree. Paying dues to destiny. Bright neon dreams in every room.
Season 4 of the Mic'd Up Show, the final episode of Season 4 we're getting word of, where every mortgage has a story. We are the ultimate hub where the hidden stories behind mortgage come to life. I am Michael Kelleher.
And I am Michael Zhao.
And in every episode, the Mics dive deep into the entrepreneurial spirit, the strategic insights, and the breakthrough innovations that build the world's greatest mortgage companies. So whether you're advancing your career, scouting for industry leaders, or exploring opportunities in mortgage or fintech or prop tech, you are in the right place. Let's get ready to unlock the story behind every mortgage. Let's dive in today with Aaron Van Trojen, founder of and CEO of Geneva Financial, a company built around a simple but rare idea in mortgage: be human. He's been named the top 100 CEOs in America. He runs a mortgage company that is often top 100 in the mortgage industry. And what makes him interesting is not those acclamations and those awards, but the culture that he has built at his company. So welcome, Aaron. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
In some of the previous, and by the way, you have a great footprint compared to many of the leaders we have on. You've certainly been able to build a YouTube channel where many Americans now access their information first. On one of the podcasts you were actually on, you talked about how your father was a firefighter, and very early on, maybe the age of 12, something like that, he had you getting up, or I think even before that, you always wanted to get up with him, but right around 12, he even had you on a paper route. So you have always been able to get up early and attack the day early. When you look back, though, on that foundation, what did those early mornings teach you besides just getting up before the sunrise?
Well, I mean, I didn't know any difference. I kind of followed in the footsteps of my dad, who was always up early. You know, a firefighter has a wonderful shift. They only work two 24-hour shifts a week. But regardless, his days off, he was still up 4 in the morning, as was I. I'd like to hang out with him in the morning and see what he was up to and what he was doing. And yes, at a very early age, my parents said when I turned 16, they paid for 50% of my car. And I was really motivated by cars. I was always into cars. And so I started earning very, very early on. And I had my first paper out probably about 12, 13. I got a second paper out there shortly after. So I had a morning paper out and an evening paper out. And I just worked early. That's what I knew. But I was kind of goal oriented in my early years and was working hard to achieve that goal of a car. Which actually motivated me through most of my career.
Wow. What is it that in that motivation, what is it that causes you to pursue forward progress? To say it's always going to move forward? Because I read this morning that different cultures because of languages, look at different ways. So for example, in a Western culture, we often look to our future because this is the way that we're brought up. In the Chinese culture, it's thought of a little differently. We will revere the past and use the past, not to dictate the future, but revere it to move forward. So what causes you to have that thought process for how you do things?
I mean, to be always looking forward. Again, it's just kind of how I'm wired. My wife always concerned about me because I'm never content. So whether I hit a milestone or a goal, then I'm moving the goalpost constantly. And it's not always just a bigger paycheck. In fact, rarely is it a bigger paycheck. It's a different way of living, a better way of life. It might be some kind of materialistic thing. Like I said, very early on, I was highly motivated with cars, my love for automobiles and fast cars, which tend to be expensive cars. And then I got into aviation. and which is even more expensive than cars. And then now, my daughter races cars, which is the most expensive sport on the planet. And so there's always been something that's always driving me forward, and I can't imagine sitting still. So I don't know if that's a good explanation, but that's what, no matter what, there's always going to be something in front of me that I'm trying to achieve.
I think it's a fantastic explanation. I think it's fantastic you were able to find something more expensive for your daughter than horses. So kudos to that. I've one of the parts of your story that stood out to me is as a board member of the Massachusetts Mortgage Bankers Association, we teamed up with this group called Early Investors. So they have us going into high schools, and high school students get like a fake job budget, and my job is to teach them about home ownership. And when we talk about early education and home ownership, my perception of it before was typically those turn downs we have at pre-approval. To actually get to talk to 14 and 15 and 16-year-olds, you start to learn their views are very early, often dictated by the house they are brought up in. And the biggest differentiator to me that I've seen so far in the times I'm doing it, the students that have gotten a job at 14, like you did, get it far further along. And now granted, they're only 17 than the ones that didn't have that job. So the environment of which you grow, to me, it was just an awakening, even their view of home ownership and renting. So you grew up, your father was a firefighter, which is a civil position where it's about service and sacrifice, responsibility, and even putting some of yourself on the line for others. You often talk about your desire or seeing that and that being part of your what you grew up, the environment. How did that wanting to serve others show up and actually, when you accidentally fell into the mortgage industry, keep you in the mortgage industry?
Ooh, that's a deep question there, because like I always tell people, I never recall having sit downs with my family, with them telling me life lessons, and certainly never talked to me about being financially successful. That wasn't in their life. I mean, they didn't pursue wealth and riches and those types of things. They were very, very middle class, and nobody. I think what I learned is not how to, to build wealth. I learned how to work hard. And I don't think I was ever told to work hard. I just watched my dad do it. And so I just innately did it. And so it taught me how to work hard, and which is why I started working at a very early age to earn. I didn't know what to do with the money. I didn't know how to run a business, although running a paper out, it's sales. You go on your days off, you go out there and try to sign up more people so you can deliver more papers and make more money. So it was taught to me without anybody necessarily coaching me. I think one of the biggest factors was my dad taught me how to be a good human, which turned out to be our model much later in my career. So working hard and having very good character, actually caring for other people, has really, really benefited me tremendously in everything that I've done in life. And when I went to college to become a firefighter, and that didn't pan out. I got into the fitness industry, ran health clubs for about 10 years, found out very quickly, working at the health club, I could make 2 to 3 times what I make as a firefighter. And I was also very passionate about fitness. So it wasn't hard for me to give up one, career path for another. The move from the fitness industry to the mortgage industry was harder because I had a passion for fitness and I didn't have a passion for debt. And the mortgage industry, we sell debt. I mean, we like to fancy it up and sugarcoat it and talk about home ownership and this, that, and the other thing. But we sell debt when you get down to the nitty gritty. And I just wasn't passionate about it, but I was good at it. And I was mostly good at it because I learned how to become a very, very successful salesperson and manager in my 10 years in the fitness industry. And I think I was also very good in the mortgage industry because I was a good human. I worked hard and I was a good human. So, you ask those questions, I put the pieces together. I don't know if that's necessarily how it all came together, but it makes sense that it did that way.
It's interesting that you say that, because I've in my personal experience as a debt advisor, or however you want to call it, my belief in changing the narrative is that we're not necessarily offering debt as much as in the narrative change, we're offering leverage in order to pursue a greater amount of forward momentum, whether it's the purchase of a home, whether it's financed by a car, whether it's to purchase gifts or experiences. It's all being leveraged in some capacity. And in economics, they call it opportunity cost, the foregoing of one thing to do something else. And I think that when we have that capacity of forward thought, then it creates something different. And one of the things as I'm listening to you is you've used some of your experiences, and I'm going to say it gently this way, whether it was your lack of success as a firefighter and your frame of reference of entering in the mortgage industry, there's some failure involved, whether it's emotional or vocational. It becomes evident in the way that you've presented yourself. And I think that over the course of the last 3 years, whether it was a high interest rate environment or whether it was 15 years ago when the mortgage industry had dropped, there was some failure in the system and not in the people. But yet then we have some self-deprecation of, was it my fault that the industry is ending up in that capacity? Why is it, do you think, as a leader, when you look at your salespeople who may need some improvement, why do they become self-deprecating to the point of not accomplishing as much? And is there a lack of confidence? And how do you present yourself as a leader to change the narrative?
These are some questions. I've made, to get to where I consider myself relatively successful. I've been relatively successful in everything that I've done. I don't think I've ever failed. I've made a ton of mistakes, and some quite tragic mistakes. I don't think I've ever failed. I've been close to failure, but not ever failed. And I think that, again, I don't know how to answer that question. Is that the industry, I think, is inherently flawed in so many ways. We don't have nearly enough hours in the day to go through my feelings on the subject. I think that most people in this industry are probably in it for the wrong reasons. I might also be in it for the wrong reasons. I mean, but I'm very candid about I'm in this business to make money, right? I didn't get in the mortgage industry because I'm passionate about houses. I'm just not, right? I have them, I enjoy them, this, that, and the other thing, but that doesn't fuel me. And I tell everybody, I'm like, the mortgage industry is a wonderful industry because it enables you to make a tremendous amount of money if you work hard and take care of people. I find that if the salespeople that we have, the employees that we have that really have a heart for people, which I think is rare in this industry, do the best over time, right? They have the longest livelihood in this industry because they're not in it just for themselves to make money. While that may be a motivating factor, the number one motivating factor, they're not going to do it at somebody else's expense. Right. And again, I shouldn't just throw stones at the mortgage industry because it's what I know. It's just what I know. Most industries might be the same way as this industry is, but I don't think most of the people in this industry are in it for the good of the consumer. I don't even think the lenders, the governments, everybody, the whole system, I think, is flawed because the system enables us to do things that we know are good for the consumer. And so when somebody says, I love because they help people get into homes and their back end ratio is 55% and they have no money down and they're going to have $5 to their name every single month and be miserable the rest of their lives because they're buried in this debt. That's not good for the consumer.
Correct.
But our industry chases that. And then, like I said, the government enables us to do those types of things for the consumer to keep them buying. That's not good for people. I do it. I mean, our company does it. right? Because I have to accommodate to loan officers and branch managers so I can grow as a company. But we do things, I enable things to have happen in this company while legal, I don't think are right.
Yeah, I think the outside world doesn't understand the mortgage industry as a whole. There's not much room for vertical growth like other industries as far as roles go. And so your job, when they say make money, is you are almost a servant to your customer base, because that's where you grow. If you can own your own zip code, grow bigger than in your own zip code, that's how you grow. Unlike a software company that has hundreds of other W-2 jobs they can put you, if you don't have that drive anymore to make money, once you get into the water, you have to sell to stay in it. And I think statistically, being in a home ends up putting people are in a better trajectory than renting. So overall, they say, okay, let's help people maybe that we shouldn't get into homes. And the loan officer's job is to sort of go with the cards dealt. So like you said, if the government's giving these loans, somebody's going to give them, let me give them at least with better advice. So I guess my question is, knowing that the only real growth is sales management and then owning a company, as you made that progression, at what point were you working where you had to work a little bit less for your customers in the community and work more for your employees, because you now had a certain amount of employees that you became bigger than just the yourself being a loan officer the rest of your life?
Probably the worst decision I ever made. Had I just looked after my consumers, I would probably made a lot more money and certainly less risk, less stress. I started the company. I got in the business in 01 for a small company that sold to a big company in 06, and I wouldn't work for a big mortgage bank. I wouldn't do it. Even though some might consider us that today, I'm adamantly opposed to it, and I would never work for one of my competitors. So that's why I think why we've done things so much differently. I didn't want to start this company. I didn't want to. It wasn't on my long-term goals to do. I was kind of forced because my former employer sold his. Had he not sold that company, I might be his partner today in that company, but I'd probably still be working for him and focus mostly on the consumer. But because I felt my hand was forced to start a company, I started Geneva Financial to accommodate me as an originator solely. That was the only reason I started this company. So I could have a company that would pay me what I thought I was worth. And the industry in 07, 08, 09 was going through a great consolidation, which was mostly compensation. And the industry's never given it back. In fact, it's gone down every year since then. And it just wouldn't work for that little money. As an originator, I thought I brought too much value to my consumer, my community, so on and so forth, which I still believe today. And I stayed the top producing originator for Geneva for years, mostly because we were just coming through the economic global collapse, right? Undercapitalized, nobody would give me warehouse lines. I mean, you lived through it. You know what I'm talking about. It was only when we started attracting loan officers and branch managers that liked what we were doing and that my focus had to shift from the consumer to now accommodating branch managers and loan officers. And it was an evolution. It wasn't something I necessarily planned or wanted. It just happened that way. I didn't have much choice. Now, much later in my career, that's my sole focus. Is no longer am I trying to, even this, I know that sounds cliche and people probably call BS on it, is I'm not even looking for my own financial gain. I like it, don't get me wrong, but I spend the vast majority of my time working with people within my company that have aspirations or want to learn aspirations they don't even have and help them find success. That's what brings me the most pleasure now.
So then I've said this to a few other leaders. I want to ask you the same question. I've often said to these same leaders, when your values are clear, decisions are easy. And sometimes the decisions that you do want to make are actually going to be challenging, even though, because that's what your value system says, but the business mind in you says, and you go through this mental struggle of what your values are versus what is good for the business. What are some things that you find to be easy on you to make the decision, but you have challenges pulling the trigger on it? And what do you think are some of those things that originators should find to be in their value system, but they have a hard time triggering?
It's every minute of every day. I'm constantly challenged because, again, might not be the most popular podcast you did. The industry works tirelessly to violate every single law that's been designed to protect the consumer. They're not even trying to operate within the rules. Some of it do it because of sheer ignorance. They've never read the rules. They've been told by other people, this is how you can do it. But they've never looked into it themselves. The big companies hire lawyers to teach them how to sidestep, circumvent, or violate the laws with the least likelihood of getting busted, right? So we don't do that. I try to not only to abide by the laws, not that I think they're all good, it's that they're the law, right? And I don't like speed limits, but I gotta stay within the speed limit, or I know I'm going to get in trouble for it. I try to keep within the law, but not only just the law, the spirit of the law. And it's hard. It's hard. Now, it doesn't need to be hard because the people that, we're Frankenstein. All my originators came from other companies, right, through the years. So we've hired loan officers from every single company that's ever been in business, right? It just happens that way. And none of them come from corporate structures that abide by these laws. So we have to educate them. And sometimes there's pushback. Like, what do you mean I can't just change my comp willy-nilly per law or per loan? What do you mean you're not going to pay me commissions on a loan that I'm not licensed in that state, right? What do you mean? And that's not a one-off. That is the vast majority of my competition. And we don't do those things. But then I can also teach them how to abide within the laws and the spirit of the laws, not only to help benefit their consumers, but it actually benefits them. They can actually make more money following the laws, right? But again, it's an uphill struggle. It takes me a lot more energy and work every single time. And I would like to think, so to answer your question is, one, when the CFPB was around, they really didn't mingle too much with the IMBs, right? Unless there was massive complaints against an IMB. But the problem is even if the CFPB was going to investigate the IMB, it was because they got a bunch of consumer complaints about a particular topic, and then they would audit them on that particular topic. Well, the consumer doesn't know the laws that are being violated against them. They don't know anything about fair lending. They don't know about loan officer compensation laws. So these are being, constantly in violation against the consumer, but the consumer doesn't know it, so they're never going to violate somebody. Thus, you don't have any policing, you don't have any enforcement. Now we don't even have police. So we have no police. A pro-police government is now zero police on the financial industry. And so they're running completely wild. And, so to answer your question, sometimes I'm like, why am I fighting this? Why don't I just throw in the towel like everybody else and say, the hell with compliance? Who cares about consumer protection? Because none of my competition does. But I can't. It's just not, I don't have it in my heart. I don't have it in my character, my moral code. So I would say that's the biggest struggle, and it's a struggle like daily. This is not like a random thing that I'm up against. I do recruiting. I spend most of my time recruiting, and this is on every single recruiting call. Are you going to pay me on this loan in Washington? I'm not licensed in Washington. Are you going to pay me on that loan?
Wow.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say I've been to the last 10 or 11 advocacy conferences, and one of the big subjects was for the viewers out there, even when we had the police, like the CFPB, they would constantly do regulation through enforcement, meaning they wouldn't actually list the actual rules. You would find out about them if you played in the gray area and they happened to pick you, and millions of dollars. It'd be like driving around without speed limits. And there are people that are less risk adverse and some that are, and some would speed through a school zone knowing it probably is too fast. And then some, but you wouldn't know the actual speed till you got pulled over and it's like, yeah, you were going 40 and we're going to fine you $3 million for it. And then everybody else starts driving under 40. But the risky people end up getting rewarded in this system. And it's not fair to the people that play by the rules, to the T like you. And I think you've just been very humble. I can see why you recruit a lot of people. I think our listeners need to know, you've been recognized as a top 100 CEO. Your company has always been one I've called upon. You are a larger player in this industry. And I'm sure you're proud of that award, but it sounds like for you, it's not about the awards. Success for you is really about what you've been talking about today. Moving forward, I guess, with all of the noise going on and everything in AI and technology, what do you think success is for the lending industry, or for you, or for a loan officer? I'll let you pick which one you prefer to answer out of that. But what is success going to be moving forward now?
I mean, personally, I've surpassed every goal that I've ever had. So, like I said, I just keep moving the goalposts, and I'm trying to help other people get better. I know that I'm going to benefit from that, but that I don't know if that's necessarily the motivating factor. Success for this industry, I think we got huge headwinds ahead of us as an industry, just because of the global economic environment that we're in right now, and it's going to take some time to unwind that. I'm not talking about just wars. I'm talking about debts. The debt is going to be a crippling factor for housing industry, the mortgage industry. I don't understand how long-term interest rates will come down if the debt soars like it is and has continued for some time. The industry's up against AI, as is most industries. I think ours is going to be a little bit slower to get really disrupted by it, only because we're inherently dysfunctional as an industry to begin with, right? So we're so messy. And again, I hate to look in the past to predict the future, because I don't think that's the world we're in right now. I think that's the danger that most people make. Like the internet didn't destroy all industries, right? It just grew, and that's not what AI is. The AI is going to be completely different. I think most of us that are paying attention to it know that. But the mortgage industry is so bad at bringing technology into it. I mean, it's so bad. If you look at the radical increase in costs of manufacturing a loan from 2001 to now, everybody says compliance. It's not. It's technology. It's technology. And what I always tell people is, like, man, in 2001, when I was calling in credit reports, I could close a loan in 30 days all day long, right? And the average industry closes loans in how many days? I know everybody boasts I can close a loan in 10 minutes, but I mean, what's the real average of the industry? It's still within the 3 to 4 week window, but the cost to do it has just gone through the roof. That's tech. And so it's very concerning right now, because you can't get behind it, but you could also spend a fortune implementing AI that's not going to give you the result that you think it's going to give you. So it's very, very dicey. I'm aware. I'm cautious about it. We're not just spending money, throwing money at vendors, because it's not there yet, but it's going to be there. So AI is going to be a big deal, and I'm opposed to, like, what most people say, regardless of industry, that AI is just going to make a salesperson more productive. Not true. I mean, maybe for a while.
So then I have a follow-up to a lot of this is that we've been either upset about or disappointed about, I like to change the narrative before we go into the break and ask you, what are the 3 things that you're grateful for in the mortgage industry? And what are 3 things that originators should be grateful for in the mortgage industry? And I bring that to the context of the saying yes and. Because if someone says, "Oh, I have a flat tire," yes, and I'm grateful that I have a car. Yes, I'm grateful I have a job to drive to. Yes, I am grateful for that I can carry people or carry things with. So what are 3 things that you think you are grateful for as a leader, and 3 things that originators should be grateful for by being, regardless of all these situations and circumstances, what are the 3 things that you could be grateful for? And I'm just prolonging the question so you could think about the answer.
Well, I mean, it's pretty quick for me because I think that what I'm grateful for as an owner and leader of the company, that I didn't quit. I didn't give up. I didn't throw in the towel, because there's many times that I came very, very close. Remember, I founded the company in October of 2007, undercapitalized when hundreds of mortgage companies were going out of business. And frankly, I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I was a good originator, but that didn't mean that I knew how to run a business. So, and it was dicey. It was scary. I had a family, a house. I had actually a dozen houses and multiple commercial properties. I owned a real estate company at the time, and I was just getting hammered at all angles. And most of my consumers, and even most of my friends that were in other mortgage companies, they were walking. They were throwing the keys back at the lender. They were getting cars repoed. And as a business owner, I didn't have the ability to go late on a credit card without fear of losing my licenses. So I didn't have that opportunity to quit on anything. And I'm glad that I didn't, because I was at the breaking point, every single day for years, very scarring. So I'm thankful that I didn't quit. In what is it, April, May of 2020, when COVID hit with the CARES Act, before they fixed the CARES Act almost put all mortgage companies out of business, right? They basically said if you didn't have to prove that you were disturbed by COVID, you could just stop paying your mortgage, and the mortgage company couldn't come after the assets, which basically made mortgages worthless, zero overnight. And that almost put us out of business. It almost put the entire mortgage industry out of business. And I came to the verge of just saying, I'm taking the chips off the table. I'm checking out. Because if I stay in this but a handful more weeks, everything that I've earned over the last 20 years is going to go away. And I powered through it. I had faith in the system that they weren't that stupid and they would fix this problem. And they did. So I'm thankful that I didn't quit. I'm really thankful that I didn't quit, although I'm still in the mortgage industry. So there's the flip side of that. I found out something better to do. But anyway, from a loan officer perspective, I would say what they should be thankful of, and they usually aren't, because they're pissing and moaning about why the government hasn't done X, Y, Z for them, right? They're very entitled. Is you are in a business that for potentially the foreseeable future, you have the business not only to change people's lives for the better, which you do. You can radically change consumers' lives for the better, right? And that's not only first-time home ownership. Right now, probably more than ever, there's more people in pain and suffering that are on the verge of losing their house because they're just buried with debt, but they don't want to give up a 3% interest rate or a 6% interest rate, even though they could save thousands of dollars a month and change their entire financial situation. Right? You have the ability to change lives right now and make a huge impact on people's lives and make a ton of money actually doing this, right? And you can work from home in your underwear if you want. And you can do loans all over the country at home in your underwear if you want. And you don't have to, kiss the butts of people and buy business from other people and pay referral fees for business. I mean, you can literally help so many people and run a great business all by yourself without any risk, without any headaches. And you're in I don't know a better industry than this to be able to do that, or I would be doing it. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the ability to just scale that message. I spoke in front of 70 loan officers on Own Your Zip Code and talked about how they could have a podcast like this. And if they just focus on their zip code and not a bigger thing. But I asked how many loan officers have a podcast that is 5 weeks into it active right now. And nobody raised their hand. They didn't have a Mike Millis there, but I was like, this is the greatest. Like, I bet if I go to the next lender, I never even thought of that. I thought it'd be half the people. It's going to be one person raising their hand. But if your podcast was about the guests, but once in a while you talked about those pains, you might become the credit card debt psychiatrist of the zip code, and you'd be surprised how many people are in pain. And it's just time. Eventually they'll make the move. Yeah.
It's like most people are in pain. It's not finding the low-hanging fruit. I mean, they are the low-hanging fruit because the majority of people in the United States right now are hurting.
Yeah, and it's kind of like I said, psychiatrist, but like that's an area where you're not going to be able to sell them on one call. They almost have to talk it out of themselves and let them sell themselves on. Yeah, geez, this is worse than I thought. But I don't know if any of our sponsors are podcast specific, but they are technology specific. They are trying to help people scale. And we're going to jump to our sponsors. We thank our sponsors. We're always looking for new sponsors to at least get a free shot at getting in front of lenders and telling their story real quick. And on the other end, we got some questions for Aaron to take us home.
Verifying income for all your applicants means you need roughly 23 different vendors and waste hours and hours of your team's time. But with TrueWork, it's just a single place for all your income verification needs, so you get the most advanced VOIE solution. TrueWork combines all major verification methods into a single, easy-to-use platform to give you a completion rate of 75%, cutting your cost by up to 50% and getting real results for your team. TrueWork, your one-stop shop for income verification. Click, verify, repeat. Talk to our team today.
Wire fraud. Can you afford the risk? Today's automation and technology-based trends demand solutions to fraud threats. Funding Shield provides lenders and investors real-time transaction-level verification, certified wire fraud protection to protect loss of funds at closing due to cyber-based and other threats. We help improve your bottom line through fraud prevention, risk management, and validating the parties and documents involved in mortgage closings. Prevent fraud and theft on your closings.
All right. I was listening to actually the Mike Millis podcast. Big respect for him. I've been on his podcast. I hope I got his name right, but he has a podcast down in Texas, and you were on it, and you said a line that just in the coffee shop, it kind of woke me up. How your daughter, who races cars, we found out earlier, but you talked about how she gave you this quote: "How do I know I can win if I've never won?" And I just thought that's such a powerful line as an entrepreneur and as a former entrepreneur of a technology. What was your answer? Like, how do you teach entrepreneurs or anybody the answer to that question?
It's not easy, but I was taught it very late. I mean, I was in my 20s when I was in the fitness industry. I had a mentor in the fitness industry that owned the health clubs that I worked for. Basically taught me everything that I knew about how to think successful. And he introduced me to Napoleon Hill. Read Think and Grow Rich. It radically changed my life. That one book changed my life forever. And it instilled the idea of, you can achieve anything that you believe, right? And I didn't believe. Nobody taught me. When I grew up, everybody said that people that drove Porsches and Ferraris and those types of things, they were other people. They were wealthy people, not you. There were other people, right? Nobody said, Aaron, if you really want a Porsche, just work hard enough, you'll get it. Nobody ever taught me that. My family didn't talk to me about it because they didn't know any better. Nobody taught them about it. None of my teachers, my college professors, none of them taught me these things. And it took an owner of a gym, very successful owner of a gym, to teach me these things very early on. And so I started believing. And I learned from firsthand experiences that, I was making like $2,000 a month. This is back in the 90s. $2,000 a month. Read the book, and 30 days later, I'm making $4,000 a month and $6,000 a month and $8,000 a month. And again, this is back in the 90s, working at a gym. And so it was proof that the minute I believed that I could become successful, I would. And I've never given up on that belief. And I've told everybody that's ever worked with me to read Think and Grow Rich. In a quiet place, read it 10 times because it did change my life. And the same thing that I teach my daughter, and again, the parallels becoming a professional athlete and a professional in any industry is very, very, very similar. You're not going to be successful if you don't believe you can be, period. I don't care how hard you work. If you don't think you're going to be able to be successful, however you define success, you'll never get there if you don't believe you can accomplish it.
So then for the people that are out there, because we mentioned debt at the very beginning of the show, and we're like, oh, we don't like debt. Debt is bad. And I said that, well, why don't we just reframe the narrative? But yet it's reframed every day. Somewhat when a consumer decides to use a credit card at whether it's a $50 charge, $1,000 charge versus a $250,000 mortgage charge at 3% 5 years ago, but yet at 12 to 33% interest rates for credit cards, $50 at a time, it's a death by 1,000 paper cuts. Or it's an originator that says, I don't want to make the 3 phone calls today because I'm afraid of rejection, but yet they're so consumed about the rejection, they're not focused on the future, because money's not emotional, people are. And when we have the willingness to focus on the emotions that are going to propel us forward, then it changes the narrative. So then what is it that causes you to consistently change the narrative? Because it's often that you have mentioned it, you change the narrative so you can focus forward. You've mentioned Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. But the entire industry in the sales positions, I'd say that not the 10%, but the 90% look at the lack rather than the abundance. How, as a leader, what are the things that you think there should be more focus on so that there is more abundance in either lead generation or whether it's in capital markets and trying to figure out the pricing models to get better pricing in capital markets, or in processing and operations so that it could be more, creating more of the abundance of time rather than originators asking, when are my docs? How fast was underwriting? How fast is this?
Well, I mean, it depends on what perspective you're talking about. So from a business owner, I've got to make sure every system is sharp as I can get it, from the speed and the integrity of processing underwriting to our execution in the secondary market, right? I need to be able to do those things to give my loan officers the tools they need to survive. But that's not entirely true. That's basically the image that I got to do. And we do it, and we do it quite well. But from a loan officer perspective, is they're constantly worried about those things, right? You see what they try to sell. 10-day closes, sharp rates, this, that, and the other thing, but they're doing a deal a month, right? I got the greatest mobile app. I got the greatest this. I got all these bells and whistles and I'm doing a deal a month. And even if I give them a better mobile app, they're doing a deal a month. If I get them a better pricing, they're doing a deal a month, right? So there isn't this huge transformative change. If you watch loan officers with most companies bounce from one company to one company, next company, if you see any ebbs and flows in their business, it's because the market's moving them. It's not because they're changing anything that they're doing. They have to change their behavior to get a different result. It doesn't matter what company you're working for, and rates don't matter. They don't matter. That's in the mind. They matter to the loan officer because the loan officers think they matter. And I know there's some degree that rates do matter, so don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But I can't do any loans today because rates are at 7% or 6%. That's not true. And I think that one of the biggest problems that the industry has, and I haven't necessarily solved this problem. I do everything I can to solve this problem, is the lack of training, the lack of education. I'm not talking about the difference between FHA and VA and conventional. I'm talking about We make more money than most. We have the ability to make more money than most professional athletes, more doctors, lawyers. But do we train like them? Ever? I mean, how many loan officers? How much time every single day are they spending improving on their skill? It's zero. It's zero. It's not at all. I mean, I struggle with my own company. This is the same conversation I've had with my employees since I've been in business, right? I'm very loud about it. And it does move some of them. But like I said, I lead a lot of horses to water, and I got a lot of thirsty horses still.
So my follow-up to that then is, why isn't there more mock-ups in trainings to create the resiliency in a sales workshop or sales workout, or something to create the workouts to practice so that those skills can be enhanced rather than the consistent complaint across the industry?
Well, I mean, for me, and this is an excuse, but it's real. It's my bandwidth. I can't do it. It's the accountability to keep somebody. And this is hard. It's like going to the gym every single day. Now that's wired in my DNA. So I get up and go to the gym, and if I don't go to the gym, I get weird. So I've already got past that hurdle. But for most people, it's hard to go to the gym every single day, to eat healthy every single day. And if they hire themselves a good coach, that coach keeps them accountable every single day. You need somebody to keep them accountable every single day. I can't keep each one of my employees accountable every single day. And branch managers, most of them don't know how to do it, right? That's industry-wide, because they're just an elevated loan officer, but they've never necessarily been taught how to do these things themselves. So you gotta put together a system that keeps people accountable for every single day. And it's hard, man. It's hard to get great at your trade. It's hard to be really good as a salesperson, which is what we are. It's hard. And it takes a lot of time, effort, energy to be great. And people are looking for the next best shiny object, next best AI application that's going to help them generate a whole bunch of business. And it's not. It's just not going to. So I don't necessarily have an answer. I'm trying to do it. And I've been trying to do it every single day as the owner of Geneva Financial with my employees. And there are people that have benefited tremendously from it, but I can't tell you all of them do.
So I have I personally have an exercise that I go through. Say no to 3 things that I want in a day. And then the 4th thing, regardless of how much great impact or small impact it has on my life, just say yes. And I do that as a training to create abundance. I do that so like, it might be like, someone says, here's $100. Like, I got to say no. Why? Because I'm training myself how to say no, so that when the thing does come 3 months, 6 months, whatever down the road, I'll have the training to say no, but also have the personal strength to say yes if it's something that's going to say, this is what's giving me signal versus this is what's giving me noise. And it's going through this type of training process of saying no to 3 things that you want and saying yes to one thing regardless of size, that we go through this type of training processes internally so that we can figure out what is signal versus what is noise. And then whether it's physical workout, mental workout, spiritual workout, whatever the situational circumstance would be, it creates the type of competency that we can have to create more abundance in what the things that we do want, so that we can figure out yes and no. So that if that is possible, for me, at least for a single person, there is possibility of change internally, if not at leadership, then at the sales level as well. Do you think that there is an exercise then that you could do in your own company to create something like that? And I'm just using my personal experience as an example, but that way you can create the mental exercise, and as a result, the physical actions to create that exercise for originators.
Yeah, I believe it wholeheartedly. I don't know if I've necessarily done that.
Well, you don't have to subscribe to my way. I'm just using it as an example.
No, what I'm saying is, it doesn't really matter to me. There's a million different ways to do it. All of them usually come down to the same concepts. It's just, again, getting the people to buy in and actually do it and follow it. And first and foremost, you got to get them to believe. I think I've done more than enough to get the people to believe they can be successful if they want to be successful. I think that's stepping stone one. And then also get them to realize that to be successful, again, depending on how you measure success, is you're going to sacrifice, and it's going to be hard, and there's blood, sweat, and tears. And if you're not willing to put up the pain, it ain't going to happen. And these are things that like I said, I'm trying to teach my 16-year-old daughter. I've been trying to teach her this since she was 12 and got into motorsports. And she's doing something harder than I've ever dreamed of doing. Right? This is next level hard. Starting and owning a mortgage company has nothing on becoming a professional race car driver. And you're teaching this person with such a young mind that's not been molded yet at all, doesn't have life experiences. And you're trying to punch her in the face and say, hey, you're not going to have the life that your friends have if you want to become a professional race car driver. You're not. And are you willing to sacrifice? And I really wish that more, somebody was that earlier age to me, I might have become a naval fighter jet pilot, which is one of my dreams that I want. I might have played for the NFL. Who knows what I would have done? And somebody told me at an early age that if I knew that I could be super successful doing whatever it is that I wanted to do, there was a chance that that was going to happen. Right. And again, being a successful loan officer isn't playing for the NFL. Let's be serious. It's not that hard. We overcomplicate this tremendously. Like I said, this is probably one of the easiest industries to make this much money at. People are like, are you kidding me? This is so hard. All the rejection, give me a break. Give me a break. I can't. This is not hard. It just takes a lot of energy. I mean, it's not hard compared to racing cars. It's not hard compared to the NFL, probably not as hard as becoming a brain surgeon or a rocket scientist. Are you going to put in the work? You got to get them there first, man. And you got to get them to believe, and then you got to get them to willing to sacrifice. And again, I know there's a lot of people in the industry, especially at my age, that are like work-life balance. It's fine. Drive a Honda.
I love these strong opinions. You obviously have conviction. I just want to make sure that we touch on, and I actually think the authenticity is powerful in why loan officers should pick up the phone and find out more about Geneva or what you are about. But do you think those strong opinions allow you to kind of get through the noise and get to your cultural root, which is you want good humans working for you? Do you think that really helps you be able to tell early on if a person is a good human or not?
I can be a lot for a lot of people. I can be kind of too much of a personality for them. Although this is me, my passion. What my hook has been on people since I started this company is at the same price point, I'll pay twice as much as any of my competition. Nobody's been able to prove me wrong for 20 years, right? I started this company because I wouldn't work for other companies that wouldn't pay me my value. And so I've been doing that for 20 years. In fact, we pay so much that most people don't believe that we can pay as much as we do because they have such little understanding about how this industry actually works. How much money is actually made on a mortgage today, or how much money their company's spending right now. But anyway, so that's usually what gets them in the front door, gets them to have the conversation with me. Is how we compensate them, because I think that's hugely important. And we're salespeople. I mean, why would you sell anything if it wasn't for compensation? So we lead the industry on compensation, and then all the other things are things that I'm trying to do. Like we've terminated people because I don't believe they're good humans. But I don't have the tolerance to deal with people that are bigoted or racist or, and they're vocal about it. I don't care what your beliefs are if you keep them to yourself. But if it starts affecting the image of this company or my consumers or mostly my employees, you're out. I don't care how much business you do. We're not going to tolerate it. And unfortunately, there's a lot of that in our industry. And then I give as much of my time as I can to somebody that actually wants it. So if you want to run your own deal and you just want to do your own thing, as long as it's compliant and you're a good human, I'm never going to call you. I'm never going to bother you. But I spent a lot of time with people that say, hey, Aaron, I believe that you can help me get successful because you started from nothing at the worst time to ever start a mortgage company and built it to something pretty special. And we're not the biggest, nor that I have any aspirations to be the biggest. But I've been profitable every single month, or almost every single month of our existence, off of originations only. How many mortgage companies can say that? Like since 2022, we're profitable. We're making money. I don't make as much money as I'd like, but my loan officers are. I mean, and not to prop us too much, but in 2025, our average net compensation to our loan officer was 176 basis points. Net, not gross. Who cares about gross? Net.
Wow.
Nobody in the industry is even close to that.
Yeah.
So we're doing something different because they're listening.
I have one last question for you, and then I'll let Mike close it. Can you name 3 people, famous or not famous, in your life that have influenced you, and then only choose one to expound on how they've influenced you? The person has influenced you.
I mean, you want me to name 3 and pick one?
Name 3 and then pick one to explain.
So, I mean, this is mostly business oriented. I mean, Morgan Smith was the first person I went to work for in the mortgage industry. He hired me as a loan officer. He took a chance on me as a loan officer, and he created a really successful company. And I had a little bit to do with that, just because I did a ton of originating for him, so he could grow and build his company to be the success that it was. He became a great personal friend of mine. He was the best man at my wedding, and today he runs our portfolio division. So we're still very close to the day, and he's tremendously had so much impact to my life. Certainly my wife, Telly, who was, she's been there since the start. She took over operations in 2009. And if it wasn't for her and her hard work, and for whatever reason, she dedicated her entire life, and this was well before we were married, to the success of this company for nothing. I mean, she ran every lick of operations during the worst time of the mortgage industry for, pennies on the dollar. And we would not be here as a company if it wasn't for her. I've never known somebody, even to this day, that's worked harder than me except her.
Wow.
Somebody that probably had the most profound impact. I mean, aside from parents, right? I don't want to say cliche thing like my mom and dad, which obviously influenced my life. And I won't name names. Well, I can. His name was Neil Schober, and he still is today a very, very successful person in the fitness industry. His ways of coaching and training are not acceptable by today's standards. It's not PC. It was more like the worst drill instructor that you could ever envision on a movie. That's him. And he changed me. He changed my life. He changed the way I think. He got me to believe that I could. This is the biggest thing. He's the person that got me to believe that I could do whatever I wanted to do. If I believed I could, I would. And if it wasn't for the seeds that he placed in my head and the paradigm shift that I had when I was in my 20s, I would never have accomplished all the things that I have. In the mortgage company, yes, this is a vehicle that's enabled me to do. Like, I fly all over the country, right? I have a plane. I live at an airport. I'm helping my daughter try to become an IndyCar driver. I mean, I've been able to do amazing things in life. The mortgage company is the vehicle, but it was him that got me to believe. So I would say he's not a famous individual. He's not a famous person. Nobody knows who he is. But he definitely had the most. Now, my wife has a difference of opinion. She's like, that's why you're as messed up as you are. Right? So we don't share the same opinion on this individual. But yeah, that's what I would say. You know, famous people don't really move me.
No, but then you sprinkle in a little Napoleon Hill, like you said, and you end up with a great finished product here. So thank you again, Aaron, for joining us and thank you to our audience too, for joining us on our journey into the heart of mortgage innovation, the heart of mortgage opinions. Remember, every mortgage has a story. Every mortgage company has a story, and we're here to help you write yours. So if you enjoyed today's insights, please subscribe. If you're listening to any of our audio, please subscribe. If you're on LinkedIn, give it a share with your network. The mics do notice it, and connect with us on social media. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries and uncovering the stories that drive our industry forward.